If these allegations are proven true or not, Vince McMahon is done. Possibly the name of McMahon will never ever be spoken in a positive light again. But here's the other problem. It's not just how it affects him, it's how it filters down throughout the WWE, who knew what, who knew when, etc, etc, etc. And that could be the ultimate nail in the coffin for everything that we know and love about wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages, welcome to Creative Business Made Simple. I am your lovable host, John Morris, the artist, author, and coach for the creative mind. Before we go any further, I've got to ask you to do two things. First of all, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we want you to make sure that you never miss an episode of Creative Business Made Simple. The second thing I want you to do is to share this on your social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, because you're going to have the opportunity to enter our free monthly sweepstakes, which is going to give you the opportunity at amazing giveaway prizes. A lot of people tell you just to share and do all that kind of stuff, and you never do it. But if you've actually got a special offer on the other end of it where you could win and win big, then that might actually help. So you could win anything from one of our books, even my new book, AI Unleashed. Personal coaching calls with yours truly, and a month free working with me to help you build your business to get from where you are to where you want to be. How incredible is that? And all you need to do is to share on your social media platforms and to type the word DONE underneath. But in serious now, I legally have an obligation to you to inform the viewers of this episode, and probably in this sort of series, contains trigger warnings. It contains conversation not appropriate for young listeners. Basically, if you are sensitive on any way, shape or form, you might not want to listen to this because we're going to be dealing with very adult themes in the world of business that are very timely, very present in the Vince McMahon case, shall we say. And we're going to develop that obviously as we go in. But that's sort of a preface, a warning. If you are sensitive, then you might want to turn this off now. If you're still here watching me, thank you so much. It's great to see you. We are talking obviously about the Vince McMahon sex trafficking allegations that have been going on. We're breaking it down into a business format because that's what we're here for. And it's my job in another role as a psychologist in training to basically analyze things, to take out the emotion and to deal with the fact. We want to be objective in all of these things that are going on. So if you're sitting there listening and saying, well, he did it, it's like, bear in mind at this time, it's allegations. And Vince McMahon himself has released a statement that has said that basically the facts that are there were altered facts. He's not denying that he did what he did, and we're going to talk about that and so much more in this series, but it's altered, which means it's not explicitly the truth, okay? So, the other thing that I need to tell you as well as a legal formality is where we have pulled the sources from. We've pulled the sources from the original documents, which is a 100-page document and I think an 80-plus page legal what has been served, a legal thing that's out there. I would encourage you, if you want to know more about this, and to read the document yourself of what Vince has done, what's transpired, the conversations that have been had, the text messages, etc, etc, etc. It is online. You can find it. You just throw it into your Google machine and you can find it yourself. We're also going to be pulling it from Stephen P. New, which is an attorney at law based in the United States, who follows cases like this very, very closely. And actually broke down the entire, as I say, 100-plus page document for us on his show. We're also going to be following and pulling from the comments of Jim Cornette, who is a former employee of Vince McMahon and World Wrestling Entertainment, back then World Wrestling Federation. Now hosts his own podcast, The Cornette Experience, on Cornette Drive-Thru. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, and I do apologize for that. But we're going to be pulling from that. Jim was an employee of Vince's and WWE's from 1993 all the way through to 1999. and has some really interesting takes on this topic. And we're also going to be pulling from one of my friends, Eric Bischoff, who briefly worked for Vince McMahon as well, and who had some very interesting comments to say in his recent episode of 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. So that's basically, in a nutshell, at this point, 31st of the 1st, 2024, 17:37 p.m. I didn't need to say PM, but for those of you that don't know 24-hour time, that's where we're at. Okay, so I have documents here with me. Now, this is one of the only shows that I actually have written documents beside me. It is important, obviously, to have that. So, for those of you that don't know what happened, allegations came out against Vince McMahon in 2022 that he had been alleged sexual offences and all sorts of other stuff with somebody. Now, this kind of blew over. He left WWE for a short period of time, only to come back, okay? And was welcome back. It has come out recently, sort of within the last several days, that McMahon has been, how do I phrase this, engaging in quite disgusting, evil, heinous activities that you wouldn't even begin to believe. So as you are aware, I'm going to be pulling this from a psychological point of view and looking at it from an analytic point of view. I'm also going to be pulling it from a business point of view as well. So, let's begin, shall we? So, this lady who has been identified. Her age has varied, as has her story, depending whose report and you listen to. It's anywhere from 21 all the way up to 40 odd, okay? She knows how old she is, etc., etc. That's not overly important. What is important is the timeline, the sequence of events. So, the best that I can understand it is she was going through a really difficult situation in her life where she lost both of her parents, she was jobless, she was living in a complex. She knew the complex, either the manager or owner or whatever, and they basically said, you're without a job, you need to speak to Vince McMahon, who also lives in this apartment complex, and basically he will hook you up with a job. McMahon and her, at some point in time, have met and basically sat down and he said, right, okay, well, for $100,000, I'll put you on staff and whatever. This lady, and we're not going to name her, because again, we want to protect as much as we can parties, and I don't think there's anything funny really in this. There's nothing to be gained, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on as we go. This episode may be split into numerous smaller episodes, so as you can understand it, and so as it's not so overwhelming. But basically, McMahon and this lady met in private quarters and had a conversation. McMahon said that he was going to put her in a $100,000 position. She was given a position within the company. Allegedly, everybody that needed to know knew that, this is Vince McMahon's girlfriend. Bear in mind that McMahon is now 78 years old, and if she's 21, there's a massive age discrepancy there. But if it's, between consenting adults, again, we're dealing with the fact, not necessarily the emotion behind it. Basically, then the story escalates where McMahon ups her salary to $200,000 in exchange for sexual activity. And it's basically, from what I can understand, he is, dare I say it, pimping her out. There are a number of people that have been implicated by this. We're going to touch on that later. Want to stay with this specific topic right now. So, McMahon and this woman meet alone. Now, if you are a billionaire boss of a major international company, and you are talking to somebody about a potential position in your company, I never ever applaud anybody who thinks it's a good idea to meet in the home by themselves. And the reason for that is because you leave yourself vulnerable, you leave yourself open. She could have very easily claimed McMahon, raped her there. And that has happened in the world of business before. Not that it happened, but that people were accused of it. So in the world of business, you want to protect yourself as much as possible. That means really watching the conversations that you're having. any paper trails that are leading to you or any text trails that are leading to you, you have to be aware that this can be seen, this can be used against you, okay? I know a lot of people are nervous now, because in the modern age that we live in, it's very easy to have a conversation with somebody that gets out of control and gets out of hand or gets too flirtatious or whatever it might be. And there's all sorts of, laws around that. Was it, was it on common grounds? Was it both adults in agreement? Was it just a fling? Was it just a stupid bit of fun? Etc., etc., etc. Or was there something more that's going on here? The danger is as well that if one of parties declares that they were not willing participants in this, then you have an issue. Because what happens is, if both parties are willing, and it can be proven that both parties are willing, then there is no case. If both parties are willing, and one party at some point says, no, I don't want to pursue this any further, then you have to stop. McMahon, in his texts, have basically said, and in his conduct, have basically said, no means yes. And again, that is an ultimate master manipulator technique. We're going to get into that, obviously, later on. But the reality is that he's had a conversation with this woman in the private confines of his own home. Many would say that there's nothing wrong with that. I would. I would absolutely say that's, rule 101 broken. You don't have private conversations with people in your own home by yourself, male to female. It just doesn't happen. Okay, and I don't think it should ever do, because you are leaving yourself open and vulnerable as a business person. Not only as a business person, but also in personal circumstances, because you don't know what might transpire 6 months, 10 months, 11 months down the line, 2 years down the line, 11 years down the line. You may be accused of something, and only you and this person will know whether or not it's the truth. So, that the problem with his word against hers or her word against his is the fact that you have to then prove what you say is true. The next point in this is the fact that he sent so many obscene texts, the fact that that McMahon allegedly, at this point, sent so many obscene texts, that he sent so many vile things. It appears that this was not only malicious, not only controlling, not only mentally abusive, but also that this was premeditated. That literally he sat there, and this is from Jim Cornette's point of view, he sat there and he was conjuring this stuff up. And again, if you want to know what was, said in the text messages from McMahon to this lady, you can go online and you can find out. In the 100-page document, it is all there. It is all there in black and white. I mean, when you are listening to this sort of stuff, because I found out on Sunday morning, I think it was, or Monday morning, whenever it was, and I sat there and I listened to this. I listened to Jimmy Cornette's point of view. I listened to Eric Bischoff's point of view. I listened to Stephen Pugh point of view, and his professional sort of analysis on the case. And this is a guy who we have paid hundreds of millions of dollars to, billions of dollars, unitedly as the WWE Universe, for as long as I've been alive. It's shocking. And the reason it's shocking, just to give you an idea, we're not just talking about somebody having an affair. We're talking about McMahon allegedly defecating on, and if you don't know what that means, it means basically taking a dump, excreting, pooing on this girl's hair, in her head, face, whatever. Well, there was a threesome taking place. Not only that, but a now former employee of McMahon's and WWE's, and John Laurinaitis, has also implemented this, and unfortunately, it couldn't have come at a worse time, because his wife, who many of you will know as the Bella Twins' mother, is having surgery for a brain tumor, I believe, brain cancer, and he's doing this. There have been other people implemented in this as well. UFC legend and wrestling legend Brock Lesnar, who basically McMahon, said, hey, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and anything you want, you just tell me. And basically Lesnar, allegedly, we don't know this for certain, no comment has been made, but wanted videos of her urinating and then to engage sexual conduct and all sorts of stuff, allegedly, that was going on. So, as we explore this, I mean, it's something that is literally out of the sickest novel or pornographic film that you can imagine. And I've actually got noted down here on page 4 of my notes, was porn conditioning a factor? And what I mean by that is, from a psychological point of view, whenever you watch pornography, it floods your brain with dopamine. If McMahon, for example, and the case has been made by Jim Cornette, that McMahon had been taking a number of unsolicited or unprotected chair shots to the head from age 50 and above, is there what I would call Chris Benoit syndrome in there? Is there... Chris Benoit was a wrestler who unfortunately went absolutely ballistic, and it appears that he killed his family and killed himself. And there's a number of different things that are going on. Again, we're dealing with what facts we know at this point in time. Is it a case of McMahon, has been hit in the head and literally now has no idea as to what's going on, what's happening? Is it a case of drugs? Is it a case of steroids? Is it a case of, again, another point was made that McMahon, was... It can be a kink, shall we say. A kinky personality, which means that, they can be into some questionable things, and a lot of billionaires want to be more submissive. McMahon, at the age that he's at, where he's losing more and more power within his organization, was it a case that he wanted to be dominant? And, he wanted to, basically show that he was still controlling, getting a kick out of it. And I think a case genuinely has to be made of that. I would be really interested to sit down with people that were around McMahon for a prolonged period of time, and actually have the conversation with them. Was there a change in McMahon's behavior? What did you know? What didn't you know? And that's something I think after we take this break that I think we need to discuss, because I think it is a really important question to ask. Okay, and we're back. Welcome back to Creative Business Made Simple, folks. The only show that helps you get from where you are to where you want to be in your business and beyond. Today we are talking about the Vince McMahon sexual trafficking story that is going on. We're looking at it from a business point of view, but also from a psychological point of view as well, because there are a number of lessons that you can really learn in this story and as it's unfolding. So we've already looked at, if you're a multi-billionaire businessman, it is not wise for you to be conducting personal meetings in the confines of your own apartment. Again, if you're looking to employ someone, I would suggest that you do it in a business setting if you own a business premises, or that you have multiple people in on the meeting. To protect yourself, it protects those who are your potential employees. It also protects your company. It means nobody can come back and say, well, you said this, you said that, because you have witnesses. We've also been looking at different conducts and things, and if you are a multi-billionaire and you are conducting yourself in a way where you are sending inappropriate sexual text messages, where you are conducting yourself in a mentally deprived teenage boy, way, then I think you need to have people around you, or you need, and you're aware of this, I think you need to have specialized help, because this is not normal behavior. And in the case of Vince McMahon, this is not normal behavior. Jim Cornette said it himself that he worked with McMahon from 93 to 99. That I know to be factually correct. And he said he could never imagine anyone of McMahon at any point in time, going along with this stuff. The problem is, as well, is if this was a one-time thing, and I think this sort of goes on to our next point about repetitive behavior. So as a one-time thing, you could look at this and say, okay, could this person just be after McMahon for his money? There's no smoke without fire. The fact that she has text messages, the fact that she has times, dates, places, people, the evidence is stacking up. I mean, the evidence against McMahon is insurmountable. Professionally, I think McMahon is absolutely done. Now, he may find a way to come back out of all of this. He has said that, look, I will defend myself, I will do this, that, and the other. The reason that I bring it up, if it was a one-time thing, you could sort of put a question mark above it, or certainly have a little bit of a, okay, But the fact that McMahon was... This isn't the first time, okay? For those of you who don't follow wrestling, there was a scandal that happened in 1992 where a young boy, ring boy, was sexually assaulted and molested, and apparently McMahon said, if you do not have homosexual sex, it looks like it was with Pat Patterson, who was a former a wrestling official, one of the greatest minds, in the wrestling business. But if you don't have gay sex with Pat Patterson, you can't keep your job. That's what this guy was saying. McMahon denied that, and there was all sorts of sex scandals, allegations that went on for a number of years after that. McMahon, to the best of my knowledge, was acquitted of it. But the fact that this has happened again and again and again, the latest being this young lady that's potentially between 21 and in her 40s. There was another case of Rita Chatterton, who this apparently is still an ongoing investigation. There's been a number of different things. So the whole thing about it is obviously people think in patterns. They don't think logically. If this has been going on a number of different times, and McMahon has been accused personally a number of different times, there's also, the merit and the conversation to be had, and merit in the conversation to be had about the amount of payoffs that female WWE talent has had over the years. The amount of times that McMahon has shifted money from personal funds to cover up things. The reason that this case is coming out with this young lady is because McMahon shifted. There was a $12 million shift in a personal account that happened in 2022. X amount went to one person for an NDA, non-disclosure, and then the $3 million went to this lady, I'm assuming, and the reason that this came about is because he or whoever was involved stopped paying the amount, and this was meant to be paid over 5 years, and that's why this has all come about. So the fact that this is, again, they often say there's no smoke without fire. The fact that it's been brought up again and again and again and time again, it gets to a point where it's like, okay, there's definitely something that's gone on. We look at it from a sort of personality profile. McMahon, late 70s, is no longer with his wife, Linda. Probably hasn't been for a long, long time. Eric Bischoff, during his tour in Glasgow, had said very openly that Vince McMahon was effing everything with a heartbeat, or everything with a pulse. That's a direct quote. You genuinely are like, okay, wow, okay, again, even trying to get my head around this. So personality profile, obviously, Vince, and they often say people that are extremely successful in business have a very high sex sort of personality about them. And Vince McMahon quite clearly fits that mold, fits that bill. They have a high sex energy. Was it a case that he was losing power in his business? He was getting too old. His business had been bought over, even though he was still the majority shareholder. All ideas went through McMahon, and he literally, again, if like we talked about, alluded earlier on, was it a pornography sort of conditioning that had gone there? Because there is some really sick forms of pornography that's out there. Even on his television show on WWE Raw, WWE SmackDown, McMahon had talent, particularly female talent, behave in what I would consider deplorable ways. He defended it by saying that they would not do anything that they were not comfortable with. you can be very, very comfortable with a massive paycheck. But equally, if you are told, look, if you don't do this, you know, and positions have been cut before because of this kind of stuff, not just in WWE, I gotta stress that, not just in the world of wrestling, but in other professions as well. So it's really important to you know, again, sort of clarify all of this. So you know, you kind of look at that, and there was, again, looking at WWE programming, there was things that Vince did that you think, you know, again, you know, having wrestling altercations with his daughter, you know, having you know, even storylines, you know, down to, you know, again, my, you know, dear friend Eric Bischoff, you know, on TV romances, you know, and all sorts of things, and he even said it himself, he wasn't comfortable with it. You know, and he point blank put his foot down. There was other people that had very uncomfortable sort of, you know, relationships on air with people that went disastrously wrong. Again, WWE is not the only organization. They are telling a television story. But you gotta wonder, from a television story point of view, how far down that goes. Again, we're getting off point. We're not dealing with facts here, but it does throw up some very interesting conversations for sure. You know, that happened. So the personality profile of the young girl, allegedly, so according to my notes, she's between 21. Some people have said up to 40. Basically, she, in Jim Cornette's words, is a young girl. Or a young woman, I think that's a better way of putting it. A young woman that is going through a really difficult time. She hasn't got a job. She needs money. She works at, you know, or she lives in an apartment complex that is quite pricey, especially in Connecticut, which I'm assuming is where they you know, they still are. Her parents have just died, you know, and she needs money. She's been told by somebody that she trusts within the apartment complex to go and speak to Vince McMahon, you know, and she's done that. So that's really where we're at with regards to that. You know, it's tragic. You know, it really is tragic, the fact that this is going on. Our next point, obviously, is... it really comes down to... In fact, before we move on to that, so I want to finish the point regarding porn conditioning. So basically, porn conditioning is your brain floods with dopamine when you are watching pornography. It makes you think that you are feeling great and you're feeling wonderful, and that's how you get off. The problem is that the brain doesn't know the difference between... you know, right and wrong, if I can be so loose in using that phrase. And the reason that I say that is because you could be watching pornography that is immensely harmful, but because you have had an orgasm, essentially, you came, you did everything, you know, your brain registers that as, oh wow, you felt amazing when you were watching that. So... again, you know, that should be, your brain doesn't think in, oh, well, this isn't, you know, this is the law, or, you know, this could get you in prison, or this could get you in trouble. Your brain thinks, I want to flood you with feel-good chemicals, okay? And that's ultimately what happens. Now, if you are into bestiality, for example, where you enjoy watching people have sex with animals, and you get off on that, your brain is registering in your flooding your body full of dopamine and saying, you like that, so you go back to it, and you go back to it again, and you go back to it again. How do we know that McMahon, and the reason I bring this up is because this is stereotypical behavior here, of somebody who has been conditioned by pornography. How do we know that McMahon, you know, didn't find a kink where scat, which is a form of sexual pleasure, where basically people defecate, and that is a form of, you know, basically, yeah, go on, but I really should have even talked about this stuff, but it is a kink, basically. There's a number of different ones out there, 3 ways, or, you know, 4 ways, gang rape. I mean, basically, if you can think of the most extreme, sick, perverted things that are out there, literally, it's on the internet. How do we know that McMahon, you know, wasn't behaving in that way? Did he just conjure this up? I don't believe so. based on all the years that I've been a psychologist in training, based on all the psychology stuff that I've read, that I've looked at, the case studies, the people that I've worked with. This isn't just coming off, Johnny come lately kind of, sort of just throwing in layman's terms on my 2 cents. It is literally someone who's studied this stuff for about 15 to 20 years. I don't know. In all honesty, I would love to categorically say, yes, I think that was a factor. Without speaking to him directly or people that knew him directly, I can't comment. I really can't. But I raise that as an interesting point of view. The other thing is as well, and the reason that I bring this up is because a conversation I was having with someone the other day, some things years ago were considered flirtatious or fun in their acts. But this, taking a dump on somebody's head, 3 ways, pimping somebody out across state lines, which is illegal in the United States, it's just borderline. It's not even borderline. It is an evil act. The issue could be for McMahon to come back and say that, she was into it, which then you have to prove. Obviously, if she's raising these points, there's 2 sort of schools of thought of that. Either she's raising it because she wasn't into it or because the money stopped coming in. Both of those. And people, will comment on this, I'm sure, and say, well, how could you say that? How could you say that? Again, I'm dealing with the facts. The golden rule with anything like this is you have to take the emotion out of it. Okay? So that is crucially important. As we move forward into our next point, just before we take our next break, because I know this is a lot of information, and we've got notes here, it's unscripted, so this is literally as it's coming to me. It's not just a case of McMahon being implemented, and that brings us to our next business point. If you are in business on a massive global corporate scale, then you have to think about the other people that this impacts. So again, we talked about this right at the beginning of the show. At the top, you've got Vince McMahon. It filters down professionally to his board of directors. Now, we know Triple H, Paul Levesque, Stephanie McMahon, who is the wife of Paul Levesque, Tony Khan, who's in there. Those are sort of your main players. There are other people there, of course, but it also filters down into other employees. Bruce Pritchard, who has been a long-time supporter of McMahon and colleague of McMahon. Kevin Dunn's name has been brought into this. Jim Cornette's name was brought into this, even though he has nothing to do with the WWE now. I think anybody that's associated with wrestling, but then it filters down into your talent, your top talent, down and down and down and down. What is apparent, and this, unfortunately, I would say is almost, it's beyond words, quite frankly, what I'm about to say, because people within the WWE knew that this was going on. They knew that this was going on in one form or another. The question is, who knew? Who knew? What did they know? When did they know it? And ultimately, what did they do? So did the top board know? Now, Tony Khan bought over or went into business with McMahon. I think it was last year or the year before. Did he know? I guarantee you he didn't. What business implications that has is massive. Because this doesn't just affect McMahon, this affects the whole WWE, your talent, your board of directors, your shareholders, all of these different people. Anybody who's got anything to do with WWE can be impacted. And as Eric Bischoff said the other day, it's still raw. I mean, the poor guy was absolutely cut up about it. And I have to stress that, he was cut up about it. He was deeply emotional, deeply upset about everything that was going on. He physically was sickened by what had gone on. The question is as well, it's not just professionally who this affects, but McMahon has children in Shane and Stephanie. Shane and Stephanie have children, McMahon's grandchildren. Some that are in college, some that are in school. Brock Lesnar, if it's proven, has a daughter. John Laurinaitis has family. There's a lot of people that are impacted here. The families of people in WWE. It's a massive thing. It filters down. And that is the lesson. We'll talk about this when we come back from break. But that is the lesson that I want to stress to you right now, that when you go into business, your conduct matters more than just you. If it is just you that is, messing about and doing stupid stuff, and you're a single guy, you're a single girl, whatever, and all of that kind of stuff, it's only you that it impacts. Perhaps your business. But when you've got a family, when you've got children, when you've got grandchildren, it impacts all of them. And we'll talk about that more when we come back from break. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Creative Business Made Simple, the only show that helps you get from where you are to where you want to be in your business endeavors and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us again in this episode of the Vince McMahon sexual trafficking allegations. We've been talking all sorts of different things and all sorts of different lessons that you can pull and learn from the situations that are going on, obviously, with McMahon. For those that are just joining us at this point in the show, McMahon has been accused of quite heinous and sickening sexual traffic allegations against a young lady. And the official document that's over 100 pages long is absolutely is just absolutely horrific. And just before we went to break, we were talking about the impact that this has. So when you're in business and you have staff, you've got a team, you've got, anybody, whether you're in big or small business, you literally are responsible for them. There's what's called the duty of care, which means you've got to take care of their mental health, you've got to take care of their physical well-being. You don't put them into situations that they are not comfortable with, and you've got to be aware of all of these different things. And it's as simple as that. You try to be aware of your actions, and you do calculated risk management and crisis management basically for everything that you do. Obviously, in this case, McMahon has been accused of sexual trafficking, basically of a lady. This isn't the first time that this has come out, and basically what we've been talking about here is sickening and quite heinous, quite honestly. Psychologically, just looking at it from the lady's point of view, I think one of the big questions that I jotted down at about 4 o'clock in the morning when this came out was, the big question is why? Jim Cornette had said in the years that he worked for McMahon, which was 93 to 99, that he never ever heard McMahon doing anything like this. McMahon didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, he was always business. That was McMahon. He never heard of anything like this coming out. Now that McMahon is older, and we're talking about 78 years old, again, if you've read any of my books, you've listened to any of the conferences, the talks, anything that we've been talking about, you will know very, very well that I firmly believe nothing ever just happens. Ever. Regardless of what it is. Nothing ever just happens. There is always a trigger. There is always something that makes the activity happen. So the picture didn't just fall off the wall. It might be, inadequate, assembly when you were putting the picture up. Or it might have been that there was, an earthquake. Or it might have been that, some DIY digging was going out on the road. But either way, that picture didn't just fall off the wall. Something had to happen to make it happen. And it's the same with McMahon. Why would a multi-billionaire wrestling legend of a major corporation suddenly behave this way? And I do have my own thoughts and theories on this. Again, we've talked about pornography conditioning. We've talked quite at length about McMahon losing power, getting older, wanted to prove that he still, could do something, that he still was a man, and some people have that. From the face of it, looking at this, and again looking at McMahon when he came back to WWE in 2022, he was wearing a pink bandana, a pink suit, and he had a mustache, which really didn't suit him. But that's by the by, that's personal preference. Was it an old life crisis? Again, you can sort of play games, and I think sometimes, not that it's fun to play games in terms of thinking what could have been, but I think it has to be considered. McMahon's state of health, as we've talked about, Cornette makes a great point, which was McMahon had multiple shots to the head with a chair, without doing a brain scan, CT scan, all that kind of stuff, that there is no way to categorically, definitively determine whether or not McMahon does have some form of brain damage or Alzheimer's, dementia, all of that kind of stuff. I think that should be, definitely be taken into consideration. And I think it should definitely be explored for sure. Again, if the opportunity came to actually speak to Paul Levesque, probably not Stephanie, because I think from what Cornette had said, Stephanie's been more or less dodging her father. She left in a couple of years ago when Vince McMahon came back to power. She came back when Vince left. She left again when Vince came back, and now obviously this has transpired. She's back again in the WWE. Is there an underlining factor there? Again, if and I would love, not from a, I know a lot of people want to do these things just because they want the views and the publicity and everything. I would love to sit down with Triple H, with Stephanie, with, ideally either one of those, and to have a full conversation where we genuinely trying to get to the bottom of this and say, okay, what did you know? Ultimately, what I want to know is, did you notice any change in your father-in-law? Was there any odd behavior that was going on? Because this isn't a normal thing. Did you know of Vince McMahon using any form of pornography? It's not to defend McMahon, but as we've said right at the beginning, it is important to be objective, to actually look for the facts. And this is what a good investigator does. This is what a good researcher does. It's important to look at the facts. A lot of people out there will say, burn McMahon, it's horrible, it's heinous and everything. It's because you're acting out of emotion. How could he do this? I'm not interested in any of that, okay? I've already asked those questions. I've already concluded those answers. What I'm most interested in is, what are the facts? What actually happened? Not just on those dates. And we want to talk about that momentarily. Back in May 9th, 2020, specifically. We want to talk about what was his behavior like. Anytime I had seen McMahon publicly, on TV, on the internet, anything like that, it's like, what was there anything there? He certainly had a skipping his step when he was in Saudi Arabia last month or the month before for one of the events that was there with The Undertaker. They're obviously having a good time. Again, how far down does this filter? How does it impact and, affect everybody involved? It has been suggested that literally now, McMahon, the name of McMahon, you can't alter it. You can't alter what's been done. You can't utter the word McMahon. And if you are a McMahon, you might want to think about changing your name, because this is going to stick to you like super glue. Stephen P. New, legal attorney at law. We haven't talked about him much on this episode so far. I think we're going to change that now because we now come to the point where he's talking about this. So, Stephen P. New, legal attorney at law, spoke about this in depth. The first thing that New spoke about was he feels that McMahon in particular has been given bad legal advice. And what he means by that is, like we said, however long ago now, McMahon literally was paying this lady who, again, for those of you that are just joining us, who he basically defecated in her hair, pimped her out, had multiple sexual altercations, threesomes, got other people involved, was sharing videos of her in the TV trucks. There was a lot of stuff that says, again, there's the document that's out there that if you haven't read it, haven't seen it already, I would strongly encourage you to do so as you're up to speed, again, factually, that you know what you're talking about. And this specifically, and I have to stress, this is the case that has been brought against McMahon. Okay, this isn't the definitive sort of thing. This is what the lady who is claiming McMahon has sexually abused her, assaulted her, mentally abused, etc., 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 has done. This is her side of the story. Okay, so the reason that Stephen Pinu had said that it was bad legal advice is because, literally, if you're a multi-billionaire and you have committed acts of this nature, you want to make it go away as quickly as possible. From a professional point of view, okay? Again, we'll take out all the emotion, and this is directly from what Stephen had said. You want to make it go as way as fast as possible. And he basically said, if I was advising McMahon, if it was 10 million, 15 million, 20, 25 million that he was being asked to pay and that he'd agreed to pay, he's like, pay it, just pay it. Because if this gets out into the public, if this gets out into the public sector, if this reaches your board of investors, your stockholders, your shareholders, if this reaches your talent, if this reaches your competition, this could destroy you, but not just you, your family. Because guess what? If people are sitting there saying, well, I'm a female wrestler. Obviously, I'm not a female wrestler, but if you're a female wrestler and the WWE is the number one place to go, or you're going to go to AEW and you are the best female wrestler on the planet, do you really want to go to WWE? Knowing that McMahon has paid off female talent in the past, and there's records of this, based on what Jim Cornette was saying and Brian Lass on their show, on Corny Drive-Thru. Do you really want to go to WWE? That was Stephen's advice. Basically, pay it off. Keep it as a non-disclosure, which means once you've had the money or while you're being paid, you cannot talk about this to anybody. That is a loophole in the world of business where basically if you've got enough money, you can make these things go away. And people have been doing this around history. It's not just McMahon, it's a number of other people before you get all shocked and scared. I jotted down as well, in the business world, you want to avoid as much as possible putting skeletons into your closet. What that means is don't do stupid acts, okay? If you're having sexual encounters with people, don't do a whole lot of text things, especially don't do a whole lot of voice things. Be very, very careful about this. The only exception for this would be if it is mutually agreed upon and it's proven that it's mutually agreed upon. If you're forcing someone to do something that they don't want to do and it comes out, stop. Just stop. Seek professional help. Okay? And there is a lot of help that's out there. Vince's conduct as well. It goes back, and I did a whole list of, psychological analysis about this. I actually wrote down in my notes, this will require further thought and research. It's crazy, this behavior. The first 33 paragraphs in this document, which is this lady's accusation against McMahon, was basically about the facts, about how they met, how the conversation came about, how she started working at WWE, etc., etc., etc. And I think it's about paragraph 100 that she gets to the acts. Just as I'm reading this, I'm so sickened and saddened for McMahon's grandkids, for his children, for his family, for anybody's family. It's a 20-page legal document. It's 100 paragraphs. That's an amendment that I want to make. You can read it for yourself. So we want to move to a point now when this was taking place, and the first date of interest really that caught my attention was May 9th, 2020. Now, if you'll notice that date, you'll notice that something significant in the world's history was going on at that time. We were in lockdown. John Laurinaitis, who has also been implemented this, we've talked about him very loosely, as engaging in a three-way with McMahon and this young girl. lady, should I say, sorry. Um, he did not live, as far as I'm aware, of Connecticut. I believe it was Arizona that he lived, but don't quote me on that. I will need to find that out for confirmation. Okay, and somebody probably can go through that now. But basically, the world is in lockdown. They were running TV out of the Performance Center, which was in Florida. And then the question is, when was this taking place? You know, how was this taking place? McMahon, obviously, the allegations that have come across with regards to sex trafficking, what that is down to, and Stephen P. New talks about this, is literally because he was transporting, or he was going across state lines for the intention of sex. Now, again, as P. New broke this down, he said, well, if you're a college student and you're, you know, living in New York and your girlfriend lives in Philadelphia, and you're commuting, you know, technically you are breaking the law. That's by American Constitution, you know, yeah, that's the American law for you. So is there a case to be made? But I think the fact that it is, you know, you see sex trafficking and immediately you think child trafficking, because that's very obviously current in our world. Very relevant in our world, and you know, immediately rings alarm bells. So I don't like the fact, you know, it's been labelled as sex trafficking. I would say sexual misconduct, manipulation, sexual abuse, premeditated misconduct, premeditated sexual abuse, narcissistic behaviour, preconceived, you know, on and on and on and on and on. Gosh. There is so much that we are unpacking here. I'm just looking through my notes, as I said, because I want to make sure that I don't miss out anything really important here. So, as we get on to page, what have I got here? Page 2 in my documents. I'm sort of going, you know, in different orders here. An issue that's really interested here, and really interested me, was the fact that WWE, and I quote, and this is from Stephen P. New, WWE allowed a negligent sexual assault fostered and fostered a culture where this was allowed. It became well known as McMahon's, and I quote, bitch. People knew within the organization that this was going on. Now, again, as we've said, what they knew, how much they knew, that is going to be determined. If this goes to court, all of that will be found out. As Stephen P. New talked about, it will be I don't know where I put my sheet. So we talk about rules of civil procedure. And a rule of civil procedure means not to allude to everything that has happened, but also, according to P. New, this is one of the most detailed reports ever read. I had a note that of the next steps, and it's basically it's an inquiry. So if this goes to court, McMahon will be served, and the way that McMahon will be served was a real source of interest to me, because literally someone can be hired for, you know, 25 grand and up to camp out to find McMahon. They've got 90 days to serve this. I think it's called the subpoena in the United States. Laurinaitis will be served as well. People will then start to have to appear, and obviously Stephanie McMahon will have to appear. Triple H, Paul Levesque will have to appear. Tony Khan, Bruce Pritchard. Probably the majority of WWE talent will be interviewed, if not all of them, to say, did you know anything? Mark Calloway will probably be interviewed. The Undertaker. Did you know anything about it? All of McMahon's staff will be interviewed. This is not something that's just going to go away. This is something that is going to be, you know, this will go on for sure. Like I say, I mean, the fact of there's a number of questions here, and as we get set to take our last break, there's a number of questions that have been raised. WWE was sold in 2022, which really surprised me. Ronda Rousey UFC super fighter champion, left WWE in 2022, I believe. I think it was actually the back end of 2022. McMahon was asked to step down from his duties by, and voted off, essentially by Triple H, Tony Khan, and Stephanie McMahon, according to Jim Cornette and Brian Lass, who have read it and studied this far more than I have and digested it far more than I've had time to do over this point in time. The problem was McMahon held the majority share. I think it was 80%, and he voted himself back on. So when your daughter and your son-in-law and your business partner are voting you off the board of committee and everything else, there's something seriously wrong. We're going to talk about that and so much more when we return from break. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Creative Business Made Simple, the only show that helps you get from where you are to where you want to be in your business endeavors and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us once again in this special episode with Vince McMahon, the sexual trafficking sort of scandal that's been going on, and alleged crimes. We have been talking so much about this case and how it literally implements in business, lessons that you learn. Obviously, we've been talking about don't conduct business one-on-one in your home if you're a male to a female. It is unprofessional. It is not something that should ever be done or ever conducted. It leaves you vulnerable, specifically if you're a man to a woman. Some people might not like that, but that is the fact. That is the truth. Men are a lot more vulnerable to scandal and allegation because it's oftentimes more believable versus, women to men. We've been talking about how business gross misconduct will not only impact you, but also your family, your friends, your colleagues, your staff, your talent, all of that kind of stuff, and ultimately your business. I've got written down here, it will also literally destroy your legacy. My wife had actually made this very, very good, great point. McMahon had literally spent 50 years of his life and beyond building up WWE, building up his legacy. He took it over from his grandfather, who took it over from his who took it over from his father. So you had, 3 lines of McMahon's. Now with Stephanie and Shane when he was involved with WWE, you had 4 lines of McMahon's. McMahon, in this incident, has really tarnished the name. They will come out of this. They are strong people. They will come out of this. They will succeed in terms of the children and the grandchildren, Shane and Stephanie and the grandchildren and the children. But McMahon himself, and also you've got to factor in, his either wife or ex-wife, separated wife, Linda McMahon. The fact that she has been put in this, and she's probably sitting there saying, "Oh, Vince, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" And the fact that she was working at one time with Donald Trump. It has a knock-on effect to every single thing that you do. We've talked about a number of things, obviously, in this show, and as we head towards the closing sections of this special. That there are a number of questions that have arisen, questions as to why Vince McMahon, WWE's own Vince McMahon, sold the company. Was it a case that Stephanie, as head writer, in WWE, just couldn't cut it? Was it a case that Triple H, Paul Levesque, who had been, running things in one form or another, basically Vince McMahon's right-hand man, was it a case that he couldn't cut it? He couldn't do the job? I don't believe so. I believe, or I question, it doesn't matter whether I believe it or not, I question as to why the business was sold. Why was it sold to Tony Khan? The Khans basically now own the 2 major wrestling corporations in the world, in AEW, All Elite Wrestling, and the WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment. Why was it sold? Why was it sold? Why did Ronda Rousey suddenly, it appears, just leave WWE? Why were a number of people brought back who were released? John Laurinaitis being one. Bruce Pritchard being another. Now, I've seen Bruce Pritchard's show, Something to Wrestle With. I listened to it for a number of years. I tend to get a feeling about a person very quickly You know, whether or not this person's someone to be trusted, this person isn't. You know, Jim Cornette basically acquitted Bruce. And until something is proven, I follow that line of thought. Because Bruce, to me, you know, he just comes across as a nice, warm, cuddly teddy bear. Now, people will say, you know, well, are you insinuating that he would be beyond, you know, doing anything like that? No, I'm not insinuating any of that, because I firmly believe anybody on the planet has got within them the ability for amazing good, like Mother Teresa, and heinous evil, like Stalin, like Hitler, like, you know, all the other people. You know, that has been part of my argument in many ways when people say, well, just let people be whoever they are. You know, that is the danger. This is, by the looks of it, who Vince McMahon is. Now, he may not have always been like that. That is who Stalin was. That's who Hitler was. That was who Saddam Hussein was. As the facts in the history books go, as much as you're going to believe them. You know, so that's always the dangerous thing. But we're getting off topic. So the big question is, of course, why was the company sold? You know, was it a case of McMahon getting older, concerned? You know, why did Stephanie leave? She said she left because, you know, she wanted to spend more time as a mother and her children, and she took a lot of flack for that. She had a lot of heat, which is a term in the wrestling industry for a lot of flack, a lot of hatred. You know, why did she leave in an industry that she has loved and been passionate about? Was it just to be with her kids? I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it wasn't. It just raises a really interesting point of view. Obviously, further on down in the report, there are a number of allegations of neglect, emotional distress, gross misconduct. And this is from Stephen P. New, as you know, he reported it as well. It seems to me in the world that we are living in right now, the most insane acts are taking place. You know, the people who are frankly evil are social media influencers and are reaching hundreds of thousands, if not billions, millions of people every single day, every single week. In our homes, in our children's homes, in private confines, and so on and so on. And they're being celebrated. They're being lauded all over. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And these people are evil. I'm not going to mention names. I don't think it's appropriate to mention names. For legal reasons as well as personal. But also the fact that our heroes, bar a few, have had these things going on. I'm not saying in this world, you know, that we live in that, you know, everybody's squeaky clean, because they're not. But I think it's, you know, that there's a difference between being squeaky clean and doing what this report has said. Obviously, McMahon defecating in this woman's hair, showing and revealing sexual content of this woman to team members, to staff members, basically pimping her out, you know, Brock Lesnar being involved in this. I think categorically, quite honestly, following the... I'm even having a hard time saying this out loud, but I think McMahon, Lesnar, and Laurinaitis are three faces you will not see again in public. I'll be very surprised. McMahon may come out of this and be like, yes, I never did that at all. But the fact that she's got names, dates, you know, again, and if it was fake, because we've had this before, I've experienced this before where, you know, again, my profile was cloned and, you know, inappropriate text messages were sent. That's all been acquitted. If that was the case with McMahon, that he had been, you know, he'd had his phone hacked or whatever it might be, there's enough people out there that can sort that and prove, based on the HTTP address or the IP address, that he didn't do that. So it doesn't look good for McMahon. It really doesn't look good for McMahon. The final point that I've got here with regards to this, well, I've actually 2 points, and I want to further what Eric Bischoff had said. You know, he hopes and prays that this girl will find help that she needs, the peace that she needs. Because again, remember, she's lost her mum and dad. She's lost her family. She had no job. She has gone through heinous torture. I mean, to have your hair excreted in while you're having sexual intercourse, to be pimped out basically to the highest bidder because you're given $200,000 a year. And she's a young woman. She's 21 years old. Some reports are saying, other reports are saying, you know, older. But she's a young woman, emotionally distraught. I agree with Bischoff, the fact that I hope and pray she finds peace. I hope and pray that she finds the help that she needs, the counselling that she needs, the support that she needs through this, because the horrible thing, it's not even the unfortunate thing, the absolute horrible, heinous thing that goes along with this, and anybody that's been in this before, that's ever had this level of abuse, is that the memories stay with you. The acts stay with you, you know, the conversation stays with you. And the best thing, quite honestly, I think would be to leave the United States. That's my personal view. You know, when all this is done and dusted, because it's not just going to go away. The next stage will be, as I said, you know, Stephen P. New had said, try that again. McMahon will be served 20 days from when the report was filed, which was, I think, on Sunday night, maybe Monday. McMahon will be filed. If they can't locate him, then they can basically extend the period. The final point that I have on this is the stuff McMahon allowed on his TV show, Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, and the pay-per-views. It's a wrestling company. And on there we have seen live sex celebrations between Edge, Adam Copeland, and Lita, Amy DeMar. We've seen Trish Stratus have to degrade herself, roll around the ring, crawl around the ring, and bark like a dog in her trousers and bra. We've seen, again, Eric Bischoff have to kiss Stephanie McMahon, the daughter of Vince McMahon. We've seen Kurt Angle have to kiss, you know, Stephanie McMahon, daughter of Vince McMahon. We've seen Eric Bischoff end up kissing Linda McMahon for a TV show. With acts like this, you begin to wonder. There was also, again, you know, and Bischoff talks about this in his in his live show and also in others. It's you know, historical wrestling evidence, I guess you'd say. But the segment in Monday Night Raw, which was a live, or what was it, live lesbian HLA, hot lesbian action, where you basically have two women come into the ring and snog for 30 seconds or whatever, kiss emotionally, passionately. There's a lot to this case that I still could unpack. The stuff that he allowed on his TV, Bret Hart said back in 1997, who was a former employee of McMahon's, was basically run out of the business in 1997 for a long period of time. It'd be interesting to know what Bret Hart thinks about this. But Bret had actually said, you know, you don't watch wrestling for sex. And it had become very sexual back in 97. You know, now where we're at in 2024, you know, January 31st, just heading into February 2024, this stuff isn't acceptable anymore. You know, if it's in the private confines of somebody's home and both parties or multiple parties are in agreement to it, that's one thing. The act itself is still heinous, is still barbaric, is still really, really messed up. And if you're into that kind of thing, you know, and you say, oh, well, what does it matter? It matters a massive amount. Because you're using your dominance over somebody else to get off, essentially. And you're making someone else submissive. Now, people enjoy that, and there's, you know, all sorts of things that go along with that. That's a whole nother topic for a whole different show. We've talked about that on other shows, on other YouTube platforms. I think what it comes down to, again, dealing with the facts, is this just doesn't go away. Now that it's out in the public stratosphere, the WWE universe knows about it. The fact as well that on Friday Night SmackDown, after this had leaked all over, the conversations have been going out, WWE allowed McMahon to come out to ring the bell, to whether it's a final farewell. Stephanie led them in a, you know, thank you Vince chant, knowing that this had taken place. It is going to be really interesting over the next weeks, months, the coming, you know, period of time, how this develops. As Eric Bischoff said, and I think Eric actually is one of the wisest people. And I know Laurie, for those of you who don't know and follow us on social media, Laurie Bischoff, his wife, and I are actually in business together with Teen Life Coaching. Neither one of us are in the wrestling industry. I'll you know, sort of, you know, just confirm that. And neither is Eric Bischoff. So we are looking at this from outside observers, basically. But as Eric said, you know, we will get through this. This has been a direct lesson on what not to do in business. Okay? If you are so emotionally unstable that you are sending these kind of text messages, then get help. You know, there's a number of organizations out there that can help you. If you are in this level of business and you're sending these kind of text messages, performing these kind of acts, I think the best thing that you could do, fade away into the distance, fade away into the shadows, fade into the night quietly. Nobody needs to know where you've gone. Nobody needs to, you know, anything else. And it's not literally, it's what we call crisis management for those of watching that are appalled by what I'm saying is well, what, don't you think he deserves to be brought to justice? Yes. If somebody is unwilling and you're performing these kind of acts and somebody's unwilling, it's a criminal offence. If two parties are willing, and this still needs to be determined, if two parties are willing or more, two or more parties are willing, it's not a criminal offence. Either way, and we're just about out of time, so either way, what it comes down to is this. It has been diagnosed, or sorry, it's not been diagnosed, it's been undiagnosed, but suspected that Vince McMahon has changed. Cornette has said that. Eric Bischoff has more or less said that he is shocked and just sickened by the whole thing. There is still questions whether it's brain damage, whether it's dementia, whether it's, you know, unprotected chair shots. And in the wrestling world, you know, some of you guys and girls listen to this in business will be like, these guys are hitting themselves over the head with chairs. Yes, it is stage choreography, but the chair shots are as real gets. You know, it's not fake. They try and do it in a safe way, but the chair shots to the head, that's part of the reason you don't see them that often anymore, because there's been so many questions and concussions and possible leading to dementia and all sorts of other things. The human skull is not designed to take a chair shot to the head, and it hurts. So I think really where we're at now, from what Stephen P. New had alluded to and more or less said himself, is if this continues, it's what's called the discovery phase. I wrote down this discovery process where everything is brought forward. And what that means, just as we get ready to round up the show, is that text messages will be brought forward. McMahon's place was seized, I believe, by the CIA. And I think that was in last year. His phone was seized. They raided his home or his apartment and everything else. this isn't just, child's play, for lack of a better term. This is serious stuff. So, yeah, the text message will be brought forward. Also, communication between other members of staff and McMahon's employ and WWE's employ and any other business that McMahon has had affiliation with will also be brought forward. A lot of people will be asked to testify. McMahon employs, I was saying this to Katie the other night, that Katie's my wife, in case you're just catching up. But literally, McMahon employs a vast sea of wrestlers, and I almost think too many now. If they had involvement directly with McMahon, they will be questioned. This is not just going to be a quick fix. This could be up there, with the 96 famous sports professional whose name's literally just gone from my mind. But literally, it's not just going to go away. This is something that is going to be around for a while, and as it does and it develops, we'll obviously keep you updated. Because I think, as I said, to end this on a positive, there are a lot of lessons that you can learn on how not to do business by watching other people. And as we've talked about, don't put yourself in vulnerable positions. If you feel like you're in a vulnerable position, bring other people into the conversation. Make sure that it's on work's time. Make sure that you are doing everything legally and professionally. Don't put skeletons in your closet. If you're literally sitting there, if you're sitting there now saying, gosh, I did this, I had this conversation with someone 10, 15 years ago, 10, 15 minutes ago, 10, 15 months ago, and there is evidence out there that this was not mutually agreed upon, find a way to make it go away. Whatever you need to do, okay? Give yourself a second chance. Crisis management as well means that when you have screwed up, and it happens to the best of us, the Ultimate Warrior, Jim Hellwig, was giving lectures in universities. He was one of McMahon's employees back in the 80s and 90s and mid-90s. And he was giving out lectures, and he said something really foolish inside a university that blew up all over. I think it was all over the news before the time of internet as we have it now. But it blew up all over the place. And he had to apologize for this. He had to apologize a number of times. It's called crisis management. You deal with it in the best way possible. And when it's involving your family, remember that there is no smoke without fire, but ultimately that fire is going to filter down not just into your, adult children, but also into the little ones as well. They're in school. They're in college. They're in university. Life is hard enough without you doing that. And I pray for his grandchildren specifically that people will get around them and support them and realize, look, your granddad did this, your grandfather did this. It's not a reflection on you. I hope that's the case. Folks, I welcome thoughts, educated opinions, so please don't just post any nonsense on the comment section. But I welcome them. I really do. Do your research. Find out what you can about it. It's a really interesting case for sure, both from a psychological point of view, but also from a professional and business point of view, and one that we certainly haven't heard the last of. And if you've enjoyed this episode and have your own comments, as I say, do get in touch. You can comment section below. Reach out to us on social media. We'd love to hear from you. And if there's anything we can do to help your business get from where it is to where you want it to be, then do reach out to us in the link in the comment section below. And we'll you know what to do, all that good stuff. Yeah, it's not fun talking about this stuff. It's interesting from a professional point of view to do the research and everything, but it almost seems like something out of a horrific novel. And yeah, it's tragic, and unfortunately, some of our heroes that we love and have beloved for many years to do this, and that's part of the reason that I look at it from the psychological point of view as well. It's not to excuse anybody's behavior, but it is to understand how somebody who is an on-air personality, who's an on-air, character and everything, could do something like this, could behave in this way. You almost feel betrayed. It's like, was this there all the time? And has this just now manifested? Or was this something that, who knows? Thank you so much for watching. Do check out our daily blog as well at Creative Business Made Simple. You'll be able to find that. Just type in Creative Business Made Simple John Morris. You'll find me all over the place. And until next time, take care. God bless. And look after one another. And I'll see you in the next video.